The year is 2035, a year that has been marked by unprecedented technological advancements and societal changes. The world watches with bated breath as news channels broadcast the latest developments around the clock. Tensions are at a breaking point, with diplomatic efforts hanging by a thread and military forces on high alert. Global powers are on the brink of a conflict that could reshape the world as we know it, altering borders and alliances. World War III, a terrifying thought, is now a looming threat that casts a shadow over every nation. For decades, the world has enjoyed relative peace, a peace that now seems fragile and fleeting. The Cold War ended decades ago, bringing an era of cautious optimism and hope for a more stable future. But new powers have emerged, challenging the existing order and creating new fault lines in global politics. Economic rivalries, territorial disputes and ideological clashes have created a volatile global landscape, one where old alliances are tested and new conflicts arise. The seeds of conflict have been sown, and they are now on the verge of sprouting into full-blown confrontations. The possibility of a global conflict is no longer a question of if but when, as nations prepare for the worst-case scenario. Experts warn of a perfect storm brewing, a confluence of events that could trigger a chain reaction, igniting a worldwide conflagration that could engulf the entire planet. The world stands at a crossroads, teetering on the precipice of a new era of conflict, where every decision could have far-reaching consequences. The year 2035 may very well be the year the world plunges into darkness, a darkness that could last for generations. The year when the fragile peace is shattered and the drums of war echo across the globe, signaling the start of a new and uncertain chapter in human history. The question is, are we prepared for the consequences? Are we ready to face the challenges that lie ahead, and can we find a way to avert the impending disaster? The world in 2035 is a far cry from the world of the past. The old order is crumbling. New powers are rising, the balance of power is shifting, creating uncertainty and instability. The United States, once the undisputed superpower, is facing challenges to its dominance. China, with its rapidly growing economy and military might, is asserting itself on the world stage. Russia, eager to reclaim its former glory, is flexing its muscles, challenging the West. Regional powers are also vying for influence. North Korea, armed with nuclear weapons, remains a constant threat to its neighbours. The Middle East, a region long plagued by conflict, is a tinderbox waiting to ignite. In this new world disorder, alliances are shifting and old rivalries are resurfacing. The rules of the game are changing and the stakes are higher than ever before. The world is at a crossroads, and the choices made in the coming years will determine the fate of humanity. At the heart of the potential global conflict lies the clash between the two titans of the 21st century, China and the United States. This rivalry is not just a simple competition. It is a complex and multifaceted struggle for global supremacy that encompasses economic, military and technological dimensions. Their rivalry, primarily economic, has taken on an increasingly military dimension in recent years. The military posturing and frequent exercises in strategic regions highlight the growing tension and the potential for conflict. China, with its economic might, has been expanding its influence across the globe, challenging US hegemony. Its rapid industrial growth and strategic investments in key regions have positioned it as a formidable global player. The Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project, is seen by many as a way for China to project its power and reshape the global order. This initiative involves building infrastructure and investing in countries around the world, creating a network of economic dependencies. The United States, determined to maintain its global dominance, views China's rise with growing alarm. The US has been reinforcing its military presence in key regions and forming alliances to counter China's growing influence. The South China Sea, a vital shipping lane, has become a flashpoint between the two countries, with both sides accusing the other of militarization and provocations. Control over this region is crucial for both nations, not just for military strategy, but also for economic reasons. Taiwan, a self-ruled island claimed by China, is another potential trigger for conflict. The island's strategic location and its democratic government make it a focal point in the US-China rivalry. The US has committed to defending Taiwan in case of an attack, further escalating tensions in the region. This commitment includes arms sales and military training, which China views as direct interference in its internal affairs. The economic and technological rivalry between China and the United States is also intensifying. Trade wars, tariffs, and sanctions have become tools in this ongoing battle for economic dominance. Both countries are vying for dominance in key areas such as artificial intelligence, 5G, and quantum computing, further fueling the competition between the two superpowers. The race to lead in these technologies is not just about economic gains, but also about national security and global influence. Section 4. The Bear Awakens, Russia versus NATO. This chapter delves into the escalating tensions and strategic maneuvers between Russia and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, commonly known as NATO. In the West, another Cold War is brewing, this time between Russia and NATO. The geopolitical landscape is fraught with tension as both sides prepare for potential conflict. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, NATO expanded eastward, incorporating many former Soviet states and Warsaw Pact countries. This expansion was seen as a direct threat by Russia, which felt encircled and marginalized. Ukraine, a former Soviet republic, has become a battleground for influence between Russia and the West. The 2014 Ukrainian revolution and subsequent political shifts towards the West were perceived by Russia as a significant loss of influence in its own backyard. Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its support for separatists in eastern Ukraine have heightened tensions with NATO. These actions were condemned by the international community and led to severe economic sanctions against Russia. In response, NATO has increased its military presence in Eastern Europe, deploying troops and conducting regular military exercises. This show of force is intended to deter further Russian aggression, but has also escalated the arms race in the region. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, all NATO members, fear that they could be Russia's next target. These countries have ramped up their defenses and called for greater NATO support to ensure their sovereignty. Cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and military exercises near NATO borders have become commonplace, further fueling mistrust and animosity. Both sides engage in a constant game of cyber espionage, seeking to undermine each other's political stability and military readiness. The Arctic, rich in natural resources, is another potential flashpoint between Russia and the West. As the ice melts due to climate change, new shipping routes and access to untapped resources are opening up, leading to increased competition and potential for conflict. The strategic importance of the Arctic cannot be overstated. Both Russia and NATO are keen to establish a foothold in this region, which could become a critical theatre of operations in the future. The rivalry between Russia and NATO is a dangerous game of brinkmanship. Each side is constantly testing the other's resolve, leading to a precarious balance that could tip into open conflict at any moment. Both sides possess nuclear weapons, making any miscalculation or escalation a threat to global security. The stakes are incredibly high, and the world watches with bated breath, hoping that diplomacy will prevail over military confrontation. Section 5, a divided peninsula, North Korea versus South Korea. The Korean peninsula, divided since the Korean War, remains a volatile region. North Korea, led by the unpredictable Kim Jong-un, continues to develop its nuclear weapons program, posing a direct threat to South Korea, Japan, and the United States. North Korea's missile tests and bellicose rhetoric have drawn international condemnation and sanctions. However, these measures have so far failed to deter Pyongyang from pursuing its nuclear ambitions. South Korea, a staunch US ally, has responded to the North Korean threat by strengthening its military capabilities and deepening its alliance with the United States. Joint military exercises between the two countries are a regular occurrence, much to the ire of North Korea, which views them as rehearsals for invasion. The possibility of a miscalculation or accident triggering a conflict on the Korean peninsula remains high. The presence of US troops in South Korea and the unpredictable nature of the North Korean regime make this a particularly dangerous flashpoint. Section 6. The sands of conflict, Israel versus the Middle East. The Middle East, a region long plagued by conflict, remains a tinderbox. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, despite decades of peace efforts, shows no signs of abating. Tensions between Israel and Iran, fueled by Tehran's nuclear ambitions and support for militant groups, have also been escalating. Israel, possessing nuclear weapons and a powerful military, is determined to maintain its security and regional dominance. Iran, seeking to expand its influence and challenge US hegemony in the region, views Israel as a major obstacle to its ambitions. Proxy wars, terrorist attacks, and cyber warfare have become the norm in the region. The Syrian civil war, with its complex web of actors and interests, has further destabilized the region, creating a breeding ground for extremism and violence. The potential for a wider conflict in the Middle East remains high. Any miscalculation or escalation between Israel and Iran, or a spillover from the Syrian civil war, could draw the entire region into a devastating conflict.